Good day, nerds, and thanks for joining us for episode 3 of the Nerd Cantina show. In this episode, we are discussing some nerdy news as well as continuing to feature our interviews from C2E2. Today, we have a great interview with Cory Doctorow, author of Radicalized. He has a fascinating take on digital rights that everyone should hear. Our second interview is with Mirah Bolender, author of City of Broken Magic. We are also very excited to play the first voicemail left on the Cantina phone line. We would like to acknowledge that today's length is longer than our goals. In the future, we will be timing segments to ensure we stay under the 90-minute format. So bear with us this week and enjoy.
Calling back all nerds. Nerds!
All right, Steve, here we go on episode 3, moving into the rest of our podcast journey. How you doing?
All right. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm just loving life. Let's get right into some of the news of the week before we get into a pretty full slate of interviews and some conversations I know we want to have around those interviews. Hey, topic number 1, and something that I'm really excited about is the Joker trailer. Of course, we saw that drop, but a close nerd friend and friend of the show, Dan, sent us our first voicemail, called in the voicemail line.
First voicemail, woot woot.
Yep, it's our voicemail line that you can find in all of Steve's reviews. It's down on the bottom. It's also in our show notes. Anytime you hear something or see something that you want to chime in on or disagree with what we write, just call the voicemail line. Leave us a short voicemail. We can play it on podcast. First, I want to go ahead and just play Dan's voicemail right now so we can go ahead and answer some of his questions or have a discussion around it.
Hey guys, Dan from the south suburbs of Chicagoland. Just wanted to pick your brain and hear your thoughts on the release of the trailer for Joker coming out. Me personally, I have high expectations for the movie. Although you don't get to hear Joaquin Phoenix's Joker voice, I feel that he is definitely a good enough actor to portray the psychotic side of the Joker. I'm also wondering how you guys feel about his look. I personally like the look, but I think that's because it reminds me of Heath Ledger's Joker and Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight. Do you guys agree, disagree? Do you like the look? Do you think that they maybe went with that look to try to capitalize on the success that Ledger had? Because no denying that Ledger was a great Joker, at least in my opinion. I have high expectations for this movie, and it's really hard for me to say, seeing how DC has kind of dropped the ball a lot movie-wise compared to the MCU. But yeah, can't wait to hear your guys' response.
All right, again, thanks, Dan, for calling. Steve, what do you think?
I kind of see where he's going with this. I think we all kind of pondered the same questions. To start off, I guess we can go with the look, considering that's the first thing that pops into everybody's mind when you look at the trailer is we have a definite new image of the Joker. And these are the kind of things that you have that initial reaction, but as it saturates into your brain throughout time, longer and longer, you kind of come to terms with it. Some movies you don't like at first, but you watch them 3 or 4 times later, and now it's like a better movie. I think that's the same thing. I think initially you're taken back with the Joker because it does look more like, it looks like Michael Douglas from Falling Down with a clown face to me, the trailer, like that's essentially what this Joker movie kind of looks like it's going to be to me. You put a clown nose on Michael Douglas, take away the briefcase, and you got the next Joker movie. Like,
yeah, I don't know. So, he talked about whether they're trying to capitalize off of the Heath Ledger, Christopher Nolan Joker. And I think to some degree, yes. The Jared Leto Joker wasn't received well. The comic,
which I'm never going to agree with. I loved it.
All right. Well, we can talk about that. But the comic booky, the really animated type Joker, whatever else, didn't get received very well. The Heath Ledger Joker did. The humanizing the villain worked well. And it really seems like that's what they're trying to do here. They're really trying to humanize him, really trying to create this mental illness type past and shape it out to where it doesn't, if you're going to go that route, you can't just jump in to all of a sudden he's this crazy deranged person if you're trying to play the backstory. So you have to have this crawl into where, yeah, he is just a painted face, actual failing entertainer who is suffering through mental illness and then gets deranged.
Well, see, so there's a lot of Joker renditions. There's a lot of origins. There's a lot of, different kind of faces and masks and things like that. And what I think they're trying to do in this one is tap into the famous A Killing Joke story without having to do so. A Killing Joke, the comic
without the vat of acid.
Yeah. So A Killing Joke has kind of like two parts. It's part Joker origin and then part just really messed up something that Joker really does to Gordon's daughter. The beginning part of his origin seems more in line with what they're doing. Not exactly, but
close, right? The failing comic, right?
Yeah, failing, just I'm a failure. I'm like, society's beating me down. And
in The Killing Joke, he lost a family member. I can't remember who it was, but he did lose a family member. And this one, it looks like they're setting it up to where something terrible is going to happen to his mother, right? Being the sweet son dancing with his mother in this short little teaser. Something terrible is going to happen to mom that's going to put him off the rails.
And see, for me, that's not like my favorite rendition of the Joker. So they're trying to go with, like, I think the theme that any of us could be the Joker. You go on a month bad run and you could be the Joker too. And I get that kind of story. For me, my favorite Jokers are always this dude is so demented. He was just born that way. Like none of us have that in us. Like the best Joker stories, he does things that the normal person can't even imagine doing. So that whole everyman Joker really doesn't play for me as well. It's not that I hate it. It's not that I'm not going to enjoy it just because of that. I'll always give it a chance. He is my favorite, one of my favorite villains of all time. I have a bunch of Joker pieces hanging up on my wall right now. But I just, that sense that kick me in the dink enough I could be the Joker, I don't buy. Like I like the ones where, like, no, he is a special breed of fucking crazy. Like,
yeah, but in the trailer they even show him being this tortured person scribbling on his notepad with medication. Like, he is to some degree probably a sociopath of some type already, that just now hits a series of triggers of just random human beings on trains beating up a clown, which I that's cool.
We'll see. I mean, it's a minute, 2-minute trailer, it's a lot of conjecture. We don't know where they're going to go with it. It's kind of, based on my knowledge of The Killing Joke, based on Joaquin's kind of like acting style, and the way they're going with more of a, does it seem 70s-ish to you?
So this is when you talk about like speculation and us just trying to take 3 minutes and turn it into the movie in our head already. A part of it is this the Joker, right? And I honestly don't know. So in the comics, there's three distinct Jokers. There's not one Joker. There's three people who are carrying out the crimes of the Joker. And is this Joker the Joker that we all know? Because this Joker is in the age of his father. His father is clearly seen in the trailer. He has that moment where in the trailer where he's putting the smile on a kid's face. And I've got to assume that is young Bruce Wayne. This is in the age of his father. So really, when you look at the timeline, this Joker is going to be in his 60s when Batman's in his 30s. And he's carrying out the true Batman. So is this really the villain that he fights? Because 60-year-old Joker is not keeping up with him physically, which the Joker always has to some degree, been capable of fighting and enduring the battles with Batman.
Stu and I were talking about this yesterday, and he thinks that what DC's doing is the same thing they did in comics, which I absolutely hate. It's just a big fucking cop-out, is they're trying to create the multiverse in movie form. So Christopher Nolan's Batman is one version of reality. This Joker will be another version of reality. The TV show Gotham is another version of DC reality. That all of these, Snyder's another. So they can say it's the same, but it's all separate. And like, it's, to me, that's what they do in comics. Anytime they kill somebody and they want to bring them back, and they do all these kind of stories that flop on their face, and they just say, oh, that wasn't the real Batman. Oh, you thought that was the real Batman? No, that's Batman number 478. The real one's still doing what he was doing before. Don't worry, we didn't ruin him. No, you fucking ruined him, and now you're trying to backtrack. And I think that's kind of the sense. I think you might be right. That's the kind of the sense I get from these movies, is that they're not caring about a strong continuity like Marvel. Like Marvel.
Well, I would say DC's very known for they outright say that they don't care very much about one movie linking to the next. If it works, they're going to probably play off of it. But I can see this just being a Joker origin story that doesn't align with even the future movies. That maybe this just turns into the Joker inspiration of the three real Jokers that the comics play out later, as far as what they take and the persona that they take. But this is never really the Joker that battles Batman, because the timing is just not correct. Like this guy is falling apart when Dad's still alive, right? And it just doesn't make sense that this is the real true Joker, supervillain to Batman, his counterpoint. So it's curious.
We'll see where they take it. I try to go into these movies with especially DC movies with low expectations. I'm not trying to go in. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When Endgame comes out in 2 weeks, I'm going in with high expectations. But especially for DC, I try to just wipe the slate clean, absorb what they're putting out there. And, it just so happens when I usually leave, I leave with a bad taste in my mouth. Except for the recent, showing Shazam. Other than that, most of these DC movies, I just don't understand what the thought process is behind it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm hoping that they do it well. The trailer, I feel indifferent about. I could go either way with it. It looks like it, if it takes a right turn, could be really good and really kind of like emotionally groundbreaking for a comic movie, and really kind of get you sucked in with the cinematography. And Joaquin's a great actor. Yeah,
and so that was Dan's other question, right? Can Joaquin carry this role and kind of take an iconic role and make it something that's palatable for us all? And I say yes. He is just one of those actors that, whether you like him as a human being or not, or can tolerate him in actual public settings, as an actor, he gets as into a role as any modern actor today. He lost such a ridiculous amount of weight, apparently, to play this role, that they couldn't do reshoots because he couldn't continue to live like that beyond the actual normal timeline of the movie. They were rewriting the movie a lot throughout production, more so than normal, as they were just developing the character and developing what he was doing.
Like, to me, that's DC's downfall, is second guessing their whole shit that we talked about last week with the Snyder cut. They always get into the middle of it and wanna, oh no, we just had another good idea. Let's throw this in there. Oh, I heard a little kid at the playground talking about this. It'd be really cool if we put that in a movie too. Like, no, man, just make the fucking movie and put it out there. Like, go in with a plan, execute your plan to the best of your ability, and then put it out there and see what happens. It seems like they're always second guessing their original thought.
I don't know. I'm actually excited for this one, just because I do enjoy kind of it's just a different take on an origin story. It's a different take on a villain, and really they can do what they want with the origin story, because Joker's origin in the comics is not well defined anyway.
Oh, it's been done 4 or 5 times over and over.
It even states in The Killing Joke, where he talks about how he remembers his origin story differently over and over again, and he prefers to keep his origin as a multiple choice, to where you could do whatever you want, and it all
it
still
plays
applies.
into his like schizo personality really well.
But that gets rid of a lot of the major second guessing of the comic fans that say it's not true. Well, there is no true to comics, so you can do what you want with this character, and I like that, and I like the fact that they filmed it in a way that was gritty. It was actually on the New York City streets. There was so much leaked videos of people catching Joaquin Phoenix running through New York City, and it's going to have a good production, a good level of just realism to it. And I like the 70s take. I'm interested just to see what they do with this kind of just a spiral into mental illness that just turns into a.
Well, everybody's had their own renditions of the Joker, which I kind of like. Jack Nicholson was kind of, his own Joker. The Adam West Joker, was the clown. You have Heath Ledger's kind of like sociopathic. You have Jared Leto, which I would call more like of the gangster, extravagant gangster Joker. It looks like we're going with emo Joker this year. Honestly, that's kind of like what it plays to me as, is like, this is going to be the emo Joker. And
it's close to the Killing Joke, which is the iconic, one of the, the best arcs for Joker. And it's very close to that.
It's what
the
people,
only difference
a lot of people say it's the best Joker story.
Is he going to fall in a vat of acid, right? In the Killing Joke, that he still becomes that dismembered or, disfigured person because he falls in the vat of acid. It looks like it's starting with the same themes as far as
that has
his
been
backstory.
The one constant that everybody kind of has dabbled on, is like,
but again,
white makeup isn't paint. It's not paint,
But that's not even entirely true, though, because again, there's 3 Jokers in the Batman world. There's 3 Jokers carrying out these crimes. Not all 3 of them went to a vat of acid. So yeah, one of them could be that disfigured Joker that's face is white because he fell in. But then there was copycats after that. There's 2 other individuals that have their own unique backstories that have never been told. So there's room to not do that. I'm perfectly fine if they don't toss him in that green slime somewhere in the movie and make him come out screaming, holding his face.
You never see Heath Ledger get tossed in a vat. Yeah. You just take the assumption because the white mask never came off.
It does, though. It runs during different scenes of the movie, and you can see just regular flesh color during scenes. And he's not disfigured because of that. He's disfigured because of the knife or the cutting of the smile. So I don't think that as necessarily was the backstory of Heath Ledger either. But it just comes down to Dan asked in the voicemail, does DC screw this up? Yeah, probably.
Probably. Probably. If you gun to my head, yeah, something's gonna ruin it. It's DC movies tend for me to fall between a 4 and a 7 on the 10-point scale. Shazam I gave a 9, and it shocked the hell out of me. But yeah, most of them fall between a 4 and a 7 to me, and I hope. I said it before, I don't root against DC. I really hope they do it right. I love the Joker. I do. So I'm hoping they get it right. But I mean, throughout 38 years of watching DC movies, man, I've had my heart broke way too many times to put any kind of faith in the handling of their property.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my expectations. It's probably appropriate, hoping for a 7, right? Hoping for a 7 in the 10-point scale. But I think a 7's good for them in this one, right? This isn't the high budget CGI, team up movie. This is a lower budget real film,
which
movie
if they
that,
do right,
and if Joaquin comes and brings a great performance, and he brings in, again, really some human elements to a villain, I'll take a 7, and I'll probably just be.
And it might be the future theme going with DC. They said the next Batman movie they put out, they want to focus more on Batman's detective skills rather than just gadgets and whooping ass. Which, those are some of the best Batman stories too. I'm hoping they bring out the Hush story. Like there's some really good detective work that Batman does, and it's not just all breaking arms and snapping knees. There's some story development to do there. And if that's the way they're going, moving away from CGI, moving away from blocky, choppy fight scenes, and going more towards character-driven, real stories with intricate plots and things like that, I'm all for it. I really am. I'm all for it.
Is Jared Leto's Joker dead now? So, I know there was talk about it getting canceled. It got shelved. His standalone Joker movie got shelved. Do you know much about where that's at?
There was some thought that he might come into the Harley Quinn movie they're filming right now. That got shut down, I'm pretty sure. I think it's a combination of the fact that it wasn't received very well by fans. Leto takes really great pride in his work and his performances. I think, I'm a Leto fan, so I say this meaning no disrespect, but I think he might be a little butthurt that people didn't like his Joker, because he's a method actor, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he became the Joker. Like Will Smith and him had some beef. You know, he did some really fucked up things to the cast throughout the filming of that. So I think the fact that the fans didn't receive it as well. I know Matt Waite calls him, the nightclub owner Joker, like
Yeah.
owner Joker, which I mean, I guess I can't argue, but so I think they might not want to touch it again, which I think it's a disservice. Like I enjoyed Leto's Joker. I did.
I enjoyed parts of it in the sense of, again, he's more of that kind of comic booky Joker that people think of. Again, like you talk about, there is no human element to it. He's not a human. He is just a super deranged, sick individual. There's just nothing redeemable about him, there's some.
Well, I did like it because, when he throws Harley in the vat, he turns around to walk away and then has to have a second thought like, damn it, I do love this bitch, and dives right back in. Like they did humanize him when it needed to be. And to Leto's credit, he says that role got edited to shit.
I'm sure.
So whether the fans' reactions are justified or not is still even a question. That like Leto says, they edited like 10, 15 minutes of his performance out of that movie and some really good scenes. So we got the Snyder cut of Justice League. I want the Leto cut, the Suicide Squad, damn it. Like I want to see what that be about. Like, come on, like give it to me then.
Yeah, you're just trying to save Jared Leto. I think it's dead. I don't know. I think DC's just going to forget that whole Suicide Squad things really existed. All the spin-offs that looked like it was going that direction. Will Smith's completely out of it now and is not coming back as Deadshot. It looks like that whole Suicide Squad thing is just going to be a one-off they're going to forget about, dump it in the multiverse like you talked about, and let's do it again.
Yeah, but they brought in Idris. They brought in James Gunn. Yeah. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think it's going to get a revival. Like, and if it does get revived, bring my boy back, man. I'm all with it.
Let's move on to the next topic, which one thing that I was interested in about, and I know you being a big movie guy, was, the Academy Awards this last week. They were looking at changing the language within how they give awards that would pretty much exclude anything that wasn't produced by a major movie production company and then played in the theater. So outlawing essentially Netflix, Hulu from being considered for major awards, Academy Awards.
Which, I mean, it's kind of messed up. It's kind of messed up. It's a bunch of Hollywood elites putting a big fence around their sandbox because the new generation of kids want to come and play in their playground. And that's kind of messed up. I do see loopholes, because you have a lot of these independent movies never hit a fucking theater by your house. Half these movies, documentaries and stuff like that are nominated at the Academy Awards probably never hit the AMC 5 miles from your house.
Yeah.
So you're limited on where you could see some of these art movies anyways. And I think a lot of them get around it by just entering their movie into like a Sundance. You know what I mean? So is that what Netflix does now? Netflix buys the rights to these movies and they just enter,
Netflix film festival.
A shitty Ben Affleck military robbery movie into Sundance now, So do we water down what are supposed to be artsy kind of like movie festivals just to get around loopholes? I just think it sets a bad precedent and tone for movie watchers. It's if you enjoy Netflix movies, are you any less of a movie critic? Are you any less of a fan of film if you enjoy a movie Netflix put out? Well,
and the fact that the streaming services took home an equal share compared to the major movie production companies at the Academy Awards, and then the Academy essentially to award them and recognize the quality of production, and then after the fact say, we just don't want to look at this quality of production anymore. We want to protect our institution and protect our ability to continue making money the way we always have.
Well, think of it this way: in the dawn of cable, what would the Emmys be if in the dawn of cable they said
No HBO.
No HBO. It's not fair. You guys get to say fuck and put boobs on TV. Like, it's not, we can't compete. Like, this isn't fair. You guys don't get to play. You know, and that's to me kind of essentially what they're doing is they're eliminating their competition. You know, they fear that people are going to stop going to the movies, and I don't ever see that. I don't ever see people, you know, it's going to fluctuate up and down based on content, based on the economy, whether people could afford to go to a $50, you know, movie when it comes to popcorn kids and all that. You know, that's always going to fluctuate to a couple percentage points. But whether the movie industry is going to drop by 30% because of streaming, I don't buy it. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't know. But I was happy that, you know, the Department of Justice pretty much just came out and pretty swiftly said, if you go this direction, we're going to look at you for antitrust. That this falls under the category of monopoly because there's collusion across the major production companies to exclude new competitors, which is, you know, it's an arm of antitrust. Yeah, antitrust isn't just Walmart killing everybody. It's the collective trying to kill any new competetors. So I'm excited that DOJ will step in.
This is where they decide to throw their antitrust hammer down. Disney just bought Fox. We got Facebook buying everything. We got 5 major banks, 2 major cable companies. Same thing Doctorow talks about today. We have all this antitrust going on, and this is where the government decides to drop.
Well, let's be clear. This was like an email, right? This is just a strongly worded email. In the end, if the Academy actually goes through with it, is the DOJ going to actually, proceed with any actual process? I don't know. Who knows? Probably not.
Yeah,
they'll probably just sit on their hands as they have with every other creeping of every industry, consuming any new competitors. But at least a strongly worded email went out. At least it's being considered, and the threat has been made.
Yeah, you know, it's good optics, at least for consumers. You know what I mean? To give consumers the faith that their government is kind of looking out for them and making sure that we are provided with the best product, and there's competition out there that ensures that. So that's a little promising, I guess.
Yeah. And then a last piece of news that we're going to talk about today is just the Xbox Game Pass, them advertising or stating that they're changing their model and changing their prices. What do you got on it?
Yeah, this they think they're going to release this at E3 along with their new disk driveless console. So there's 2 sides. You know, if you do the minimum amount of gaming and you're just like, yeah, I just wanted Xbox Live. You know, I don't pay monthly. I don't pay the $9.99 or whatever it is nowadays monthly. I pay the $60 for the year. So my pricing doesn't change at all. I have Game Pass. I have the $60 a year Xbox Live. All they're doing is saying, look, you don't have to pay for the whole year anymore. Pay your Xbox Live monthly with your Game Pass, and you get them both. So my life literally does not change whatsoever.
Well, it's a discount for you. And then me on the other side, that I'm only Xbox Live. I don't play a lot of games, so I don't need a digital library of a bunch of games that come with a subscription, because I'm probably not going to play them anyway. I'm going to buy 1 or 2 major games a year and just try to stick with those. So now my cost of Xbox Live has gone up to throw in a bunch of content that, while it's good value, it doesn't really have much value for me because I don't need it and I'm not going to probably play it.
Well, isn't that their goal, to get your eyes on that screen more?
Yeah,
it is. If that's their goal, to kind of like pigeonhole you into having 150 more games in your library.
Yeah. Hoping that I become less productive in life and start actually playing the games. Yeah, that is the goal. And they might have just forced me into it because again,
check out this free Peggle.
Yeah, check out these latest 14 indie games that just dropped today. So it's I get it. It hurts my wallet because it's costing me more money. Yes, it's delivering me more content, but it's content I haven't needed in my life to this point. And I don't want to pay for it.
But in another year, this will be the standard. Everyone will forget, and it's just going to be how it is. You want Xbox Live, you get 100 and something free games, and you get Xbox Live. No one's going to remember, we're dinosaurs. Yeah. Nobody's going to remember that it was all separately packaged and you can pick and choose and this and that. Given enough time, people are just going to go back on with their lives. This is the norm. Like, I remember when Netflix mailed you DVDs, God damn it. Like,
they still do. They still do.
Shit changes, bro. Like,
I've thought about turning on my Netflix DVD delivery for a month just to do it, just to keep it alive, just to make them pay postage. Well, that takes us through this week's news that we're going to talk about. We've got some good interviews coming up with two authors that you talked to at C2E2. First one being Mirah Bolender, her first book was City of Broken Magic, which was a part of her greater series that she's coming up with, the Chronicles of Amike. I've just recently finished her book, but I'd like to go ahead and just play her interview now, and I'll talk a little bit about it after the audience has a chance to listen.
Let's hear it.
Welcome to the Cantina. We're here with Mirah Bolender, the author of City of Broken Magic, with her second novel coming out, the sequel to City of Broken Magic, Monstrous Citadel, which releases in November. Thanks, Mirah, for coming out and being with us. I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
I just wanted to kind of start off the interview by giving our listeners a little bit of a background about yourself. How long have you been writing, where you come from, things like that. If you'd like to just give us your quick bio.
Sure. Me, myself, I've been writing since about as long as I can remember, which is great because it gives me a lot of practice, but it's also awful because my grandmother keeps all the old stories and she busts them out every Christmas and puts them under the tree as if it's something cool. And I'm like, no, because my sister tries to read it mockingly and it's bad. So, I've been writing a long time, long enough to not suck so bad at it.
Well, I mean, it's practice makes perfect, right?
Exactly, exactly.
It's always fun to look back on your early work and critique yourself and have that minor self-embarrassment and self-loathing moments.
Yes.
It kind of guides you in the future.
It makes you realize that, oh, yes, I was so bad, but I thought I was really good then. And that just means what I think is really good now, I'm going to be really embarrassed about because I'm going to be so much better later on.
I want to say that almost everybody that hits a certain point in their career can look back and have those same moments of just, oh my God, like what was I thinking? What was I doing? So us being early in this podcasting game too, I'm quite sure that I'll look back on some of these early interviews myself and cringe, a little bit. As far as, where are you from? Did you go to school for writing or?
Yeah. Location-wise, I've been all across the Midwest.
Okay.
We moved a lot when I was younger. For college, I went to Co-College in Cedar Rapids in Iowa, specifically because they had a writing major, the creative writing major, which is actually funny because book one, The City of Broken Magic, was actually my senior capstone project for the major. And so that's why it's the way it is because I had the benefit of the manuscript workshop that was able to go in and rip out all the really terrible pieces.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you find that experience to be actually, specifically picking a certain school that caters very much to what your end game goal was? A lot of people just pick the school that they got into and pick a major, but to be very selective on your writing courses, do you find that really pushed you ahead of the game as far as getting your work out there?
For me personally, yes, because I'm a really big introvert, and so I didn't have a writing group that I was part of, and so doing the courses through we had the fiction workshops where we were always being challenged to do something new and different. My teacher, he would put prompts based on what he was reading at the moment. One class got to write all about zombies for an entire semester because that was all he was reading. But he would say, okay, so we read this folktale. So you're going to write basically this folktale, except you need to include an ironing board. You need to do a day in the life and something else. You need to wrap all this into one story. Now write it and send it in. And then we got that round table experience where we were able to go back and forth and say, okay, so this is what I liked about it. This is what I didn't like about it. Critiquing the content of the work rather than anything like grammar. And it really kind of opened my eyes to the idea of getting feedback because I hadn't had that before. Some people are able to do this sort of thing without the coursework at all.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. For me, it definitely worked better for me to have that classroom environment, because otherwise I never would have been able to push myself into that. But yeah, it gave me a lot of benchmarks for my quality standards and for how I was writing, what I was doing really well, what I wasn't doing very well, and it gave me the opportunity to experiment, because it gave me so much.
Do you feel the courses helped you with your creativity, being able to express yourself more with your thoughts, or on writing structure and actual kind of how you lay out your story and acts and things like that? Which do you think you benefited more from?
Probably the first one, because it let me do things that I never really thought about doing. I never would have thought, okay, write a day in the life on the job with footnotes a la House of Leaves, but that was basically the prompt that my book sprouted from.
Okay.
When it comes to structure, I'm really bad with structure. So it improved me, but I'm still working on that.
Well, you look fairly young. I'm sure you have a long road ahead of yourself. Now, when it comes to City of Broken Magic, how did you come up with that concept? From the blurb I was sent, it was mixed, expressed as a mixture of, fantasy novel with a little bit of the Hurt Locker in there. So do you find that you like to pull in a little bit of our modern reality into your fantasy work? How did you come up with that?
Yes and no. When I was picking the timeline for when City of Broken Magic is supposed to be taking place, it's an alternate universe, but the technology level, for some reason, I decided that I wanted to write in an era where they still had refrigerators. I don't know why, but also far enough in the past where we wouldn't be bound by modern
cell phone technology and things like that.
Not because cell phones are hard to write, because that would be kind of fascinating to write, but because if you put it in the modern world, people are going to impress so many things on the modern world time period, because that's what we're in.
Yeah.
That's what we experience. But if you push it back into the past, then people are a lot easier to lift that.
It engages their imagination a little more.
They're a lot more likely to suspend disbelief. Not always, because I got a review on the one of the advanced copies of the story takes place in 1233, and someone wrote in was like, they didn't have this technology in 1233, and I'm like, sir, I don't think you realize
the alternate reality of 1233 they kind of did.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, and I found that a lot of moviegoers and directors and producers find that it's easier to tell a story. That was the thing I found from Stranger Things, doing a lot of research on that, is that they wanted to put it in the 80s because with internet and cell phones and stories, you don't have to do a lot of the character building and a lot of the character interaction anymore, because we're all so distant from each other now because of social media, that to tell a visual medium story or a character story, to have those kinds of technological advances in there, it actually kind of takes away from the character building and things like that.
They have to work it out for themselves rather than just say, Google, what's this thing in the basement?
Exactly. So what would you say the time length is that it took you to write City of Broken Magic and its sequel?
For City of Broken Magic, again, that was a
college project,
So it's taken up to 5 years for the actual publishing since the first sentence was written.
Okay.
The drafts for book 2 have existed almost as long as the draft 1 for book 1, just because it just kind of gradually went into it. Not in any good sense. I had to, in the past year, totally revamp what it was, but it's been in the process for a very long time.
Okay. And then your second book, Monstrous Citadel, releases in November. How did it feel to have your original work so well received that you get green-lighted for a second book? Or was it part of, you said it's going to be a trilogy, was it a triple package and they said they wanted it all at once?
They bought the trilogy from the get-go.
Okay.
And I was super excited. And my agent was super excited. I guess this isn't something that usually happens on a first book, and so I was really, really lucky with the people I've worked with, and that it hit their what they were looking for and what they enjoy, because when it comes down to it, everything in publishing is based on matter of opinion. And so just because you have a really great story does not mean that it's going to be published, because you have to find the agent who says, I'm going to sink in all this time and effort because I love this story, or the agent, publisher or publicist who will look at it too and say, okay, I'm going to buy this from you, and I'm going to walk with you every step of the way to make sure that this comes to fruition because I love this story. It speaks to me as well. You don't always reach those people. It's kind of hard to do, so it's all a matter of luck. And again, it's opinions. So
when you wrote City of Broken Magic in college, did you write it as a complete story for your school and then have to break it down into 3 separate novels? Or did they read City of Broken Magic, you already had the outline, and did you have to submit that outline to your editors to give them kind of a direction that you were going in the future, given that the other 2 novels weren't written yet?
You need to have at least book 1 finished before you can pitch that kind of thing. I pitched to my agent when I had a draft of book 1. He took a look at it and he knew I was looking at more things, and so he asked for the big outline of, okay, where do you see this series going? And so for that was enough for him, and he was able to pitch it that way because he knew I was working on it and we were improving. But you need to have at least book 1 done. You need to have the full structure of that, or at least a very good working structure so that they have something to work with and they know what they're dealing with in the future.
Just a little bit about yourself. Who do you enjoy reading? Who do you like to sit down when you're not scribbling away or typing away in your laptop? Like, who do you like to read when you relax?
Oh gosh, I've been reading a whole bunch of books. I'm finally getting off of the college, oh no, I can't read anything thing. So now I'm trying to make up for lost time. My favorite one at this moment is V.E. Schwab. She wrote the Shades of Magic series, Darker Shade of Magic. It's my favorite one so far. She's coming out with more. But yeah, I've been reading a whole bunch of them recently. I just finished Kings of the Wild. I think his name is Nicholas Ames, the author.
Okay, yeah.
I could be wrong. I read Red Shirts by John Scalzi recently. Creatures of Wanton Ruin, Witchmark.
So you like to stay in the fantasy genre, and that's kind of your niche where you kind of live? Fantasy
sci-fi is where I'm at usually. I can read nonfiction, but usually it's written in such a way that doesn't compel me enough. It's based on the book, but it's so much easier to get into the story and the human nature of a fantasy novel because it's all based on characters rather than more of an event. So.
And while you're in town, are you getting a chance to enjoy Chicago? We have a beautiful city here. I know these cons can be really crazy and hectic, but are you able to see the streets, go eat some our famous pizza, beef sandwiches, hot dogs, anything like that? Are you going to enjoy yourself?
Well, I haven't been able to yet, but my publicist is taking me out to Pisano's tomorrow, so I'm told that it's really good.
Yeah, there's I mean, Chicago is known for its food. If you can't find a top-notch restaurant and something you like, you're not looking hard enough. That's for sure. Before we wrap up, if you could give our listeners and readers just a quick, synopsis of what you would like to portray of your work to intrigue them to maybe pick up a copy, how would you like to describe your novel in your own words?
Oh gosh, that's like the worst thing you can ask an author. In a nutshell, it's about a magical bomb squad, except instead of bombs, it's magic items, but instead of magic items, you can think of them as like rechargeable batteries. Basically, if you have a rechargeable battery and you don't charge it, there's a monster that will pop up inside and eat you and all your family and your house. So
a magic lithium battery?
Basically. So recharge your batteries, kids. But yes, the sweepers, who are the main characters, are the ones that go out and basically uproot these things when they get too bad, because the city is under this rule that doesn't happen inside their city walls due to a big misunderstanding of decades back. They're still going under that, and so it's getting harder and harder to protect the people in the city because no one knows not to recharge things when they don't know there's any consequences, but they're really terrible consequences.
The concept was very intriguing. I was very felt very lucky to be able to have this conversation with you. We're really looking forward at the Cantina to reading your work and then doing a good review on it where we can link this conversation where I have a lot more information in my background.
All right.
Is there any way that you'd like our listeners and readers to be able to converse with you? Do you have a Twitter, an Instagram, or anything like that you'd like them to be able to follow you on?
I am absolutely on Twitter. I'm on, I believe it's M.E. Bolender is my tagline, whatever. I also have my website, mirahbolender.com, if they want to find me there. I should be putting up more details about book 2 on there if anyone's interested very shortly. We just got the cover revealed, so that's fun.
Oh!
Yeah, so those are the best places to find me.
Well, I really appreciate your time. It's a busy con. It gets really crazy in here, so if you'd be able to take 15 minutes out of your schedule to talk with us, we really appreciate it. And Monster Citadel comes out in November. Mm-hmm. And thanks for hanging out with us, Mirah.
No problem. Again, thank you for meeting me. Thank you.
All right, we're back, and Mirah she sounded like a great person. She sounded young. I don't know how you stood there across from her.
Yeah, I don't want to offend anybody, so I'm not going to put a number on it, but definitely a generation or two younger than we are. And she was really nervous. She was one of my first interviews that I did throughout the con, my first scheduled one. I winged a couple just walking up to people and having a conversation, but she was the first one I had on the schedule. It was both like a really kind of awkward experience for us both. I wanted to make sure that she was comfortable and I got across her product and helped her out. She wanted to just make sure that everything went well. And, we stood there for like 5-10 minutes just trying to figure out, well, where do you want to go? Where do you want to sit over here? Do you want to talk about this? And you could just tell this awkward dance of not stepping on each other's toes. And finally we just went off to the side and had a nice conversation. And she, I think she has a bright future in literature. She's definitely has her heart in the right place. And yeah, I just got a lot of good vibes from her. She was a sweetheart.
Well, it's a really interesting way that she's gotten into the business in the sense of it's like, hey, pay attention, kids, focus on school, because this was her senior capstone project that is now her livelihood. Like, she literally just took her college project at the end, workshopped it with other students, and here she is getting picked up for a major book series release, and she's a legitimate author because of her work in school. So,
well, I was glad to have that kind of aspect, because after, episode 1's interview with Matt, where he's just like, fuck it, I dropped out of college because I didn't need to pay someone $100,000 to tell me I know how to draw. Yeah. We really weren't promoting higher education in that episode. So to hear her and how school actually benefited her and how she went into school with a specific career goal in mind. She didn't just pick a university with a good, writing program. No, she went very, very specific into the type of writing program and where she went. And it obviously benefited her, whether that is coincidence, luck, or good school system. It's anecdotal at this point, only talking to Mirah, but I like kind of her story, her origin, of how she went. It does give you a little faith that if you work hard and you focus on your goals and you go and you seek out people that can mold you, kind of, even Matt talked about it. He may not have went to school, but he took on mentors. Yeah. You know what I mean? So whether you pay these mentors or you suck it out of them through networking, that's kind of like the main theme, I think, is mentorship.
Yeah, and whatever. It's a good story of, hey, sometimes academia works, because I'm a big critic against the current state of academia. Hey, in this sense, it worked. She went to school for a specific purpose, for a specific career, and it put her on the path to do exactly that. So money well spent on school, student loans, however she went about getting there. It's an awesome story, and it's a good book. Yeah. So as a fan of fantasy literature, it's a good book. It's a bit light. It's not a crazy environment, right? You've got the Brandon Sandersons and that are creating massive worlds, the Lord of the Rings, where they have to tell you where you exist. They have to tell you where the story exists to great detail. And those stories balloon up, and they're beautifully told. This story is in kind of an alternate reality to where we are. So yeah, there's cars, there's trains, there's just some basic elements of society that you can just jump right in. And it's easy to get into this book. It's not a very large book, and because of its kind of taking from normal reality, it's simply digested, kind of going out the gate. And there's not major complications in the way magic is used or way magic is portrayed throughout the book. So I like its simplicity, because it allows her to, instead of focusing on explaining the physics of the world, she's really just getting into telling action. And there's a fair amount of action. She does a very good job of describing action components and action scenes and how some of these things play out.
What about character building? Is there a lot of time spent on character building? Is it more of a character driven story, or is it kind of lightly touch everything?
Yeah, so it is. There's, like I said, there's elements of action that she does a good job of describing, and then there is there are main characters that fall in there. Laura being the main protagonist. It's not really the normal fantasy coming of age of somebody who finds some powers, whatever else, because in the end, powers and magic in this world is not really very well used by humans. They more interact with it in the world through kind of amulets. So the main protagonist, is a younger person, but not quite the coming of age. Somebody finds powers and all of a sudden is trying to find their way through that. She's an apprentice, essentially, in what is the magical bomb squad, the magical kind of response unit to things that are going on throughout these cities. And there's other elements that they create. Her mentor, the journeyman sweeper who's kind of taking her under the wing. He's got kind of the dark history that is not very well explained, which kind of gets played out by a lot of like mentors in this genre.
I got a little bit of a Bright feel from her. Have you seen the Netflix movie with Will Smith,
Yeah.
Bright? I kind of got a little bit of that feel, how society, like magic is just a part of society. We all accept it. Not as far as the whole how society works, but just that aspect of it is that you go into the story and it's just magic is there like water is for us. It's just a part of it.
And it is a part. So magic is the engine that really drives society in the sense that the power that they get, the lights that they have, they're magic. The magic is really the driving force. The book, I think, is supposed to be in like the 1200s, but it's not the 1200s of what we understand, which can get confusing at times because there's times when I really don't know what exists in this world and what doesn't, because it's in the 1200s, but there's trains, there's other things. There's even mentions of robots, but they don't have computers or cell phones, and they don't have any. So there's
from the interview, I got that. Hey, this is my world. Just deal with it.
Yeah.
Kind of like I made the world. I know it doesn't always work out in your head the way it should, but it's my world, so I told it.
Yeah, it's not all that distracting. There's just times where something's said, and I have to think to myself of all right, how are robots a part of this? Why is telephones still exist in like switchboard centers where almost nobody has access to them? There's other elements that are far beyond that, but it's easy to get by. Again, the story is told well. The three main characters are described well. They all have different backstories that I'm sure will get explored further as they go. And there's some forward progression that you see, especially by the end of the book, that you get an idea of where it's going, but the backstory hasn't been fully told. So you also know it can go a lot of different directions, and it's worth tuning into. Again, it's an easy book to pick up. It's not a very dense. I'm a Brandon Sanderson fan, so when I pick up a Brandon Sanderson audiobook, which is how I normally digest my books, I'm looking at like a 35-hour audiobook for a Brandon Sanderson book, which they are marvelous, and you've got to dedicate a significant portion of your life to get into it, and it takes a certain mindset to get into it. This book's easy to get into. I think it was a 14-hour audiobook. I was able to get through it in just a couple of days, folding laundry and doing chores, and it's a solid book, a solid foundation to what I think is going to be a good series overall.
Yeah, and she was a really nice person, and I always like being able to promote good works from good people. And the second book, I think, releases in November, and I hope we could be able to reach out to her and maybe hopefully get an early copy of that and help with the promotion in November with the second part of this series, if she's open to it. So I look forward to maybe talking to her again, and I'm really glad that we were able to kind of book this interview and put her out, or her works out, to our listeners and readers. Yeah,
and talking about book reviews, I know we've got a new member of the team who's also trying to work her way through this book. I don't know if you want to introduce her.
Yes, so I focus a lot on the movies. I did 2 book reviews for the website so far, but I'm not as an avid reader as I'd like to be able to put out the book reviews. So Megan McCarthy-Bianc signed up for us. She pounds out books like crazy, and she volunteered to come on and be our new book reviewer. So she just posted her first review this week. And I look forward to having her on the team. So this way we could put out some more literature for our fans. Like I said, I focus on the movies and the TV aspect of it. It's hard for me to really grind in on a book, even though I do love them.
Yeah. You're just an illiterate monkey.
It's just a highly trained chimp here. That's really all I am.
I mean, it's fine. I like books, but I haven't read a book cover to cover in probably a decade. If it's not an audiobook, the chances are I'm not going to ever get through it. So that's I thoroughly enjoy going for runs and everything else with audiobooks. And I finished this book. I was going to write my review, which would be my first ever written review because I don't know how to write. And then Megan joins the team. She publishes her review, and it really makes me question on whether I should write a review at all, since I don't think I could keep up with her analysis and way of articulating. So I was hoping just to dump a quick 100 words saying I like book. Yeah,
if I'm the chip of this group, you're the orangutan, buddy.
So now that she's on the team and actually putting some good articulation towards reviewing books, I might just stay out of that realm. I'll let her finish the book and go ahead and do it. But let's move on to the last author, last interview for the day, and this is a deep talk. So for those of you who are listening, it's going to take about 23 minutes for an interview, and it is well worth the listen. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that you had with Cory. I'm sure you had a great time being there in person and being able to meet him. Anything you got on it before we played?
I'm like a 5-year-old in a ball pit when I get to talk to really smart people. I really am, and this dude was just really fascinating. I can honestly say I didn't really know much of anything about him going into this. I was sent press releases when I got my press pass for C2E2 with blurbs of people promoting books. And when I read his bio and what he writes about, I specifically said, I want to talk to this dude. And I had mentioned that I would be open to interviewing anybody that these publicists really wanted to put in front of me. And he wasn't one of the people they offered to me. I had to write an email and just be like, hey, so is Cory going to be too busy this weekend? I'd really like to get in front of him because, me, you, and a few of our other colleagues, we really do enjoy these upper intellectual aspects of the nerd culture. A nerd isn't just comic books, but movies and things like that. I really want to be able to provide to our audience some of the nerdier topics of tech and how it affects our lives, science. One of the most fascinating things I learned last year was listening to a 2-hour podcast on artificial lab-grown meat. And I'll talk to somebody about that for hours. Like I found it fascinating. I have a really big yearn for human evolution, our evolutionary train now. I get really into that kind of stuff. So I want to put like some of these interviews out, test our audience, see how they receive them, because I do want to feature some of this content on our podcast, on our site, not just the trendy. There's 100,000 blogs and podcasts that just talk about the latest movie and stuff like that. We don't want to just be those guys. We want to really be the open forum for anything nerd. And this is that other not so popular side of nerd culture. And I was really glad to get an interview with Cory. I listened to it today just as a refresher. And even now, I think of questions like, man, I should have asked him more about this, or I could have talked to this dude for hours. The fact that I got 20 minutes with him, I was really happy. But this is a kind of guy that I could talk to on a loop, soak up every bit of knowledge that he has. So I'm really excited to be able to put this little 20 minutes of his brain out into the world.
All right, well, let's let the listeners buckle in, and here's the interview with Cory Doctorow.
All right, we're here with Cory Doctorow, author of Radicalized. How are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's been an energizing show.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your schedule to talk with us today. If you want to give our listeners a little bit of your background, I know you have your own website and you're a little bit of an activist, so if you just want to give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, I'm a science fiction novelist. I've written more than 20 books, about half of them novels, and I also am one of the owners of a website called Boing Boing. We write about technology and culture. It's one of the original blogs. We're like 20 years old now and got millions of readers. And I work for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a civil rights group based in San Francisco. And for 30 years, we've been campaigning for life online without surveillance, where people are free to express themselves, and against monopolies and lots of other issues that have become much more important now, in net neutrality and so on. We've been banging that drum a long time. I used to be their European director. I lived in London for a long time.
Okay.
And I'm a visiting professor of computer science at the Open University in the UK, where I used to live, and a visiting professor of practice of library science at the University of North Carolina, and a research affiliate at MIT at the Media Lab.
Well, then, yes, we're very lucky to be able to get this time with you. You sound like an unbelievably busy man. So I started reading Radicalized this week once you guys sent me the copy, and I tend to get the feeling that with the way technology is going, you kind of see a bleaker future for humanity than most.
You know, I'm the kind of nerd who has a favorite law review article, and my favorite law review article is written by a guy named Michael Weinberg, who used to be a counsel at Public Knowledge, this big activist group in D.C., and it's called "This Will All Be So Great If We Don't Screw It Up." And I think that the reason to care about technology is not merely because getting it wrong will be so terrible, but because getting it right could be so wonderful.
Well, there are many that believe with automation and AI on the bright side will come a second coming of the Renaissance and leave a lot of people the free time and ability, because we won't be so driven into the labor force, that we can once again focus on arts and things like that. But there is also the side of, the negative side, where capitalism holds on to the technology and we all just become mass consumers and just digits that fund these mega corporations. I got the feeling that you're more towards viewing that we're destined for the latter.
No, not at all. I just think that if we have to do something. Actually, the thing is, I don't believe in destiny. I'm not an optimist or a pessimist, because either one of those involves making a prediction about the future. And if you think the future is predictable, there's no reason to get out of bed in the morning. The future changes based on what we do. And I think that one of the ways that you can activate people to demand a better future is by writing about how bad it can be, and another way is to write about how good it can be. And I've done both. Both of those, I think, are valid ways to intervene. The most important thing about technology is not what it does, but who it does it to and who it does it for. There's an adoption curve for terrible technology, where if we have a bad technological idea, first we impose it on people who can complain the least, and then we work our way up as we find ways to make it more palatable or to normalize it. So, the first people to experience terrible technology are usually refugees, then regular immigrants, and then prisoners, paroled prisoners, school children, kids at home, and then blue-collar workers and gig economy workers, and then the wider world. And, I think that science fiction is not a great way to find out about the future, but if you want to kind of get a sense of what your technological future is going to look like, look at the terrible things that we're doing to your kids' age, and then add 10 years and imagine that technology will be for you. And if you want to know what your kids' are going to be using, look at the terrible technology we're imposing on refugees today, and that'll be the stuff that'll be normalized for kids: tracking cuffs and CCTVs and facial recognition, all of those other things.
So what are a few of the things that you think we're actually doing well that give you a little bit of optimism, and that we can steer the ship towards that Renaissance kind of age?
Well, I mean, all of the things that are terrible are great, right? I mean, Facebook is amazing because it helps people with rare, widely distributed, hard to locate traits discover each other. And that's how you get radical political movements that are demanding racial justice and that are demanding economic justice. It's how people with rare diseases find each other. It's also how people who are Nazis find each other, because although Nazis are loud, terrible, dangerous, and need to be dealt with, they're not in the majority. They're so widely spread that if it wasn't for something like Facebook, it would be hard for them to get together and solve the collective action problem.
So is it safe to say you have faith in the mass community of just good people being able to connect with each other?
No, not at all. No. I think that the downside of Facebook is that Facebook's business model is figuring out how to get you to spend a lot of time on the site. And if you found a bunch of people who have the same rare disease as you and you check in every day for a few minutes, that's a perfectly pleasant experience, but it doesn't make Facebook any money. And so Facebook non-consensually rams Trump headlines into your eyeballs every time you go and try and talk to someone about your rare disease, which gets you to click on Facebook more. So I don't think that people solve this just by being of goodwill. I think people solve this by demanding that Facebook be broken up and held to account.
That leads me to another subject I kind of wanted to hear your views on is, the monetization of just our everyday life, having to be in kind of more of a digital world, just being a part of that digital world. People are monetizing off of our metadata. 23andMe is now just sold everybody's DNA results to
Plus they reserve the right to patent things that they find in your genome, which is disgusting.
And there's no compensation for the actual people supplying this information that companies are profiting off of. What do you feel is the best way to kind of remedy this business model? Because it just seems to be churning and churning as we go by.
So, there's this very glib saying that if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. But the reality is it doesn't matter whether you're paying for the product or the product. We've had 40 years of market concentration because Ronald Reagan decided that antitrust didn't need to be enforced anymore. We now have a world with 4 publishers, 4 movie studios, 4 record labels, 2 big comics publishers, 5 big tech companies, 2 big cable operators, and they will figure out how to monetize you however they want to monetize you. So, Apple says we're not selling your data. Well, yeah, they're not selling your data, but they did kill 16 right to repair bills in 16 state legislatures last year to make sure that you could only get your phone repaired by them, and they could decide when it wasn't repairable anymore and could force it to be retired, so you'd have to buy another one. They did that the same year that they warned their investors that their biggest potential hit to their earnings was that people weren't buying new iPhones anymore. They were holding on to them. So, you can pay $1,000 for an iPhone and still be the product. They're not selling your data. They're just selling you to repair shops. One way or the other, it doesn't matter. And the only answer is to start reforming monopolies, right? So long as companies don't have to fear competition. Facebook lost 15 million American users last year, aged 13 to 35. They all went to Instagram, which is a Facebook division, right?
So you think you're switching, you're essentially not.
In any sane world, Facebook should not own Instagram. And the way Facebook has attained its growth is by buying or crushing or buying and crushing every nascent competitor. It's stuff that wasn't countenanced after the breakup of Standard Oil and the other big robber barons, and that we shouldn't have countenanced after Reagan, and we need to right the wrong of it. We can talk about like using copyright to protect artists or a million other things. None of those things are going to work until we have effective monopoly control. Like if you only have 5 companies you can sell your copyrights to, it doesn't matter how much copyright we get from governments as creators. They'll just take that too. If your kid's being bullied for their lunch money and going hungry, giving them more money won't get them lunch, right? The bullies will just take that money too. We need effective regulation of the monopolies first.
So that brings us to your digital rights management kind of activism. How do you see that kind of forming? Because, as the one side is, like you said, there's only a monopoly on publishers and it doesn't really matter how you do it. But at the same time, we have a problem with torrenting and, I remember the days of Napster and things like that.
What's the problem with them?
How do you make sure that creators are still being able to monetize themselves and be in control of their properties?
Well, we've had this problem a million times, right? And what we do is we take away control and we give back money. So, when the first phonograms came along, the people who'd written sheet music were like, how dare these trained monkeys who've been getting our sheet music and performing it in their living room now start selling it on records. We didn't say, John Philip Sousa went to Congress in 1908. He said, if these infernal talking machines are allowed to continue, we will lose our voice boxes as we lost our tails when we came down out of the trees, right? So the way that we solved that is we created a blanket license, and that blanket license allowed anyone to record anything. That's how Sid Vicious recorded My Way. Paul Anka never gave him permission. And that blanket license pays artists a set rate, and it allows anyone to record anything. That's how we got the record industry. And then, radio came along, and they started playing records on the radio. And the people who'd stolen the sheet music and said that that was legitimate progress, they said that was fine, but when you take our records and play them on the radio, that's just plain theft. And there was a long fight. It was super racialized. The big collecting society that wouldn't let music for poor people and music for black people in, they wouldn't let in country music and the blues. They did a deal with radio, and then ASCAP, who represented white respectable artists, came along because they finally were dragged into it. But we got a blanket license with radio too, right? And then along came cable. Cable operators are sucking in broadcast signals without paying for them. And the radio operators who'd condemned the phonogram makers, who'd been condemned by the sheet music makers, they said, well, when we did it, that was progress. When you do it, it's theft. Along came the VCR. The cable operators sued over the VCR. And they said, when we took broadcast signals, that was progress. Just as when the broadcasters took phonograms, that was progress. Just as when the phonogram record manufacturers took sheet music, that was progress. But when you do it, it's theft. Then along came Napster. And Sony, the company that made the VCR, sued Napster. And they said, when we did it, it was progress. When you do it, it's theft. And every time money talks, BS walks, you get artists paid, they give up control. We could have blanket licenses for the internet administered by super transparent 21st century collecting societies that weren't corrupt like existing ones, that were run with all the transparency of a Linux project, and we could get artists paid instead of setting them against their fan.
So many lawsuits against ended up giving us the Spotifys, the Pandoras, the streaming age of digital music, because the people took the monetary value out of that physical copy commodity. And now we've moved more towards a streaming age that kind of just puts all the content out there, and they're still kind of working out the bugs.
Well, no, but those bugs, that's the important piece, right? Pandora, Spotify, the other big streaming players, they send billions to the labels. The labels just don't give any of it to the artists. There's this story, a stream only pays you a fraction of a cent. Well, a radio play only pays you a fraction of a cent per listener. That's what a stream is, right? It's one listener. Mm-hmm. The rates are fully comparable. The problem is that the contract that you sign when there's only 4 record labels, the contracts are uniformly terrible. You know, every one of those contracts has a deduction out of your royalties for something called breakage. It's a line item that dates back to phonograms, and it represents the number of vinyl record albums broken on the truck between the warehouse and Tower Records. They deduct it from your digital royalties, right? So, you know, we can sit here all day and talk about how it's the audience's fault for not wanting to listen to music in the most profitable way. The reality is that there's more money in the recording industry than there has ever been today. Inflation adjusted, there has been massive growth since the time of Napster and before Napster.
Well, I do feel a lot of the answer to this is being an informed consumer. You know, your money does have power, where you spend it, who you give it to, things like that. Even if you only take a few small personal stances in boycotts, you know, we can't boycott everything. We, like you said, with the monopolies we have nowadays, you'll starve to death if you really try to boycott major food companies in this. And how do you feel that consumers can be more smart in where they give their money, who they give it to?
So you should do your best, for sure. Support Patreon. I've got, I sell my ebooks on behalf of my publisher, so you can buy them from me instead of Jeff Bezos. I take the 25% Jeff Bezos would trouser, I put that in my pocket, give the money back to my publisher, and then they take the 30% royalty and they give it back to me. So, you can do that if you want, right? But ultimately, this is not an individual matter, right? I mean, you can't shop your way out of monopoly capitalism. It's like trying to recycle your way out of climate change, right? This is a collective problem. Now, 10 years ago, there wasn't much you could do individually apart from trying to spend money in the smartest way possible. But now we have actual politicians advancing real policy programs that demand change. So in the EU, Margrethe Vestager, the European Commissioner on Competition, just fined Google another $5 billion for monopoly practices. Here, you've got Liz Warren running for president saying she's going to unwind these mergers in big tech. I'm waiting for her to say that she's going to unwind the mergers in content and unwind the mergers in telecoms, because those need to be unwound too, to say nothing of banks, railroads, and all the other industries that have been allowed to concentrate into 4 or 5 companies with no real difference between them. But that's where you can make a difference, right? Because these are collective problems. These are big social problems that don't have individual answers to them.
Another topic that has interested me, and I'd like to know your feelings on, is public domain.
Yeah.
So you have a company like Disney who has used public domain to make a fortune. Little Mermaid is public domain, Cinderella's public domain.
Snow White.
And now they're getting so old that Mickey Mouse was about to hit public domain. They donated hundreds of millions of dollars to the government to get that public domain years stretched out. And now they're going to hit public domain again, I think, in another 8 years, to where Mickey Mouse isn't trademarkable anymore. Right? Anybody can make a Mickey Mouse shirt. Anybody can make a Mickey Mouse story once it hits public domain. Do you see a problem as the art starts to catch up to, modern law, with companies now trying to change the rules that they took advantage of to fit them now?
Sure. In 1998, they passed the Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension Act that hit pause on the public domain. So it used to be that every year, the works from X years ago, whatever the term of copyright was, went into the public domain. They hit pause for 20 years. So nothing went into the public domain for 20 years. It was the first year that anything entered the public domain in the US, but also they took materials published in the past 20 years and put them back under copyright. And so this would have been the year to pass another, what's called a retrospective term extension, where you go back and you add more copyright to works that have already been created. It's very hard to understand how that's good policy. The Constitution sets out the basis for copyright. It says, to promote the useful arts and sciences, Congress may establish monopolies of limited times. So first of all, it's not limited times if you just keep extending it. But also, you can't promote new works by adding copyright to old works, right? Giving Disney more copyright on works they made in 1923 won't make more works from 1923 available, right? You could give them new incentives for new works if you thought there was a problem of underproduction, but there's no incentive for a retrospective term extension because you're not going to go back in time and make more stuff now that the works that you already made have more copyright. So there's no reason, no good policy reason to do it. And as you say, we enjoy many brilliant works because copyright expires. Now, trademark doesn't expire. Trademark is, so long as it's enforced, is, effectively perpetual. Trademark is much more limited than copyright. So long as there's no confusion about the origin of a good or service, you can make a new work without infringing a trademark. So what that means is that when the early Mickey cartoons start to go in the public domain in a few years, you're going to be able to make Mickey cartoons, provided you do so in a way that doesn't confuse over the origin of those cartoons, that everyone knows they're not authorized by Disney, which is great. It's how you can have multiple studios that are making Little Mermaid cartoons. Even though Disney has trademarks over their Little Mermaid, if there's no confusion about which Little Mermaid you're talking about, there's no problem. Disney, this was their moment to introduce term extension. Congress has been very busy. They've been very busy passing terrible laws and also doing a lot of nothing.
A subjective term.
And on the one hand, you might have expected, well, they could have gone in, and in the same way that you got, for example, the tax plan that was such a, so lacking in an evidentiary footing, maybe something just as vacuous like copyright term extension might have been introduced. But on the other hand, it's such a petty grift relative to the incredible literal trillions that they're sucking out of the economy with the tax scam, that it's just kind of small potatoes. And so I don't see it happening. I also think that when it was passed in 1998, although all the experts thought it was this, most people aren't copyright experts and most people hadn't heard of it and most people didn't give a damn. There's actually a sizable constituency who think that copyright term extension is terrible. And I think that it'd be very hard for them to introduce it at this point. Although that said, they just reopened the NAFTA negotiations with Canada and Mexico. I'm Canadian, and as part of the Canadian deal, we just retrospectively extended copyright for 20 years to harmonize with the US to go to the same term that was created in the Sonny Bono Act. So we just put Orwell back in the public domain, back in copyright. A whole bunch of other works just went back to copyright in Canada. It's very bad policy. But we never had that debate in Canada before, so people weren't as activated on it. I think that in 20 years, there will be no question of a retrospective term extension. Okay, and before we wrap up, I just want to let you have an opportunity to let our listeners know a little bit about Radicalize, your latest book. You're fascinating to talk to, so I want to make sure that our listeners know exactly where to find your work, what they're mostly about. Sure. So Radicalize is my new book. It collects 4 novellas on very contemporary, anxious themes. The first one is called Unauthorized Bread. It's about refugees whose Internet of Things enabled housing just sucks every dollar they have out of their pocket. Their dishwasher only washes authorized dishes and the toaster only toasts authorized bread, and they have to pay over the odds for all of this stuff, which is bad enough, but then it stops working, which is even worse. But when they start jailbreaking it, they discover this newfound technological power, which is great until the companies come back out of bankruptcy, and now they're in danger of being discovered. And since jailbreaking is a felony now, thanks to the 1998 Digital Millennium Copyright Act, these people face deportation back to the countries they fled in fear of their lives. So the stakes go way up. The second story is a story called Model Minority. It's a Superman story about Superman getting involved in a potentially fatal beating of an African-American man by the NYPD cops who killed Eric Garner. And he decides that it's finally time for him to be an ally. And that prompts a bunch of questions like, why did it take him so long? And how long will he continue to enjoy his borrowed white privilege as an alien who's neither white nor human once he throws his lot in against white supremacy? And it doesn't help that Batman is the billionaire who sold the city their predictive policing tools. The third one is called Radicalized. It's the title story. And it asks the question how it is that you have angry white dudes who kill their ex-wives like crazy and who kill brown people in mosques like crazy, but none of them ever seem to kill the healthcare executives who doom their loved ones to terrible deaths from preventable illnesses by disallowing their insurance claims. And what would happen if the kind of radicalization that we see with, say, incels were to target those vulnerable people?
That always fascinates me is where people choose to point their anger.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
sure.
things in society that drive that anger. And it always seems like when they focus it into a fine line, they aim it in the totally wrong places
Sure.
of what truly caused that reaction in the first place.
I mean, there are very many examples of that from our recent political history. I mean, the fact that the armed far right was very angry about the imaginary children of Pizzagate and totally indifferent to the real children of the Kids in Cages scandal is a pretty important example of that. And the last story, it's called Mask of the Red Death, and it's trying to dig into some of those questions. It's a story about preppers, people who think that what they need to do when the end of the world comes is go hide in a hole with thumb drives full of Bitcoin and gemstone quality precious stones and gold bullion and lots of MREs, and then when all the poor suckers have finished shooting each other and rebooting civilization, they can come out and kind of have a Frazetta painting life where they get to be warlords with harems forever. And what they're missing is that the actual heroes of the apocalypse are the ones who get the sanitation running again. And if you fail to do that, everybody dies of cholera. And, it doesn't really matter how many guns you have because you can't shoot germs.
No, well, it's been fascinating sitting in here to talk to you. I know you're a busy man. If you just want to give our listeners a quick place where they can find you, whether you're Twitter or like you said, Boing Boing.
Usually if you search Cory on Google, Cory, I'm the first result. You can go to craphound.com as my personal site. I'm one of the owners of boingboing.net, which is an old, long-standing blog and culture site. And you can find me on Twitter at Doctorow, which is my surname, Doctorow.
Again, thank you very much for your time. It was truly fascinating.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you.
We're back, Steve. Again, great interview for you. Being new to this, questioning your ability to keep a conversation going, which is a difficult thing in itself. To keep a conversation structured and going. I think you did a great job. I've listened to other interviews with Cory since your conversation with him because I find him fascinating. I find what he's talking about being worth understanding, worth looking into. It's something that we talked about, I think, as the outro last week, introducing that we were going to do this, that you could just not care about these things. And the world's just going to keep going. But it's worth looking into. It's worth understanding the path that we're kind of heading in the digital world. And I think you did a great job holding that conversation and progressing it forward, better so than a lot of the other ones that were really just promotional based in his recent interviews. You got into some deeper talk.
Well, I think a lot of our listeners and readers don't necessarily realize that one day they're just going to wake up and things are going to be different. How the world operates. I kind of equate it to, we both have kids. You don't notice your kids growing. You just wake up one day and they're tiny little functioning adults and you wonder what the hell happened to that little crying baby whose ass I used to wipe. They progressively grow. And then one day you wake up and realize, where has everything gone? How did this get from A to B? I was here the whole time, but I don't remember it at all. And I think a lot of things that go on in the tech world, a lot of things that go on behind the scenes are kind of like that. We see them every day. We're on Facebook every day. Every once in a while you get a new terms of service and you just click the box and click OK and move on with your life. And, and I don't think people realize the direction that it's going in, how it affects their daily life, the way it can affect their future. And one day we're going to wake up and we're going to have this grown monster that we have to deal with. And we're just all going to look around at each other like, what happened? I remember it was a tiny little baby. Like now I got this big thing I got to deal with. How did we get here?
Well, and he talks about it at the kind of up front at the beginning of your interview with him, where he talks about that progression. How does it go from baby to fully formed, dominating adult? And he talks about that. Really, most of these social programs and things that come and infringe on rights, they start at that refugee level, the underserved populations that nobody really cares. Like, hey, I got it. Hey, microchip those refugees so they don't get away. And then it slowly starts to become, well, this is how we manage prisoners. And then this is how we manage the paroled prisoners. We can keep tracking them. And then, well, why wouldn't we, if it's working to keep track and keep ex-con safe, well, why wouldn't we give this to children? Why wouldn't we then microchip our children so we can keep them safe and we can track what they're doing? And then, well, then all of a sudden it becomes everybody's microchipped, everybody's tracked, and it slowly grows.
Schools do those fingerprinting programs for kids, and it's all under the, if your kid's ever kidnapped, we at least have their fingerprints on them. Me in my back, my head's going, no, you assholes. If my kid ever robs a store, you just want to be able to track them down and not have to do any of the work. They always pitch these things in the most positive light, but have, I think, in my mind, the most nefarious intent. So we're going to tell you this is what we're doing it for, and it's all hunky dory. But on the back door, they have that kind of of like.
There's a book series that Cory. So since your interview, I've been diving into a lot of what he's done. As far as he's got some TED Talks out there, he's got some other things. One of his older books that he wrote called Little Brother. I started reading that. And it's an interesting story on that vein, in the sense that it's following like a modern terrorist attack and what they're doing to sap rights. And in this environment, they're using at the school level, they're using software to scan and track children as they walk the halls to make sure that they know where they're going. All of the computers are completely open, and it's illegal to actually use any type of encryption or whatever else. The government has the ability to see what's going on, and it starts to get rolled out following the terrorist incident to the mass populations, where they're pulling people over based off of their transit card activity on where they went for that day, and if it met certain triggers in their algorithm as suspicious activity, they would just randomly pull people over to ask them why you went here and there for the day, and why weren't you on your normal route today? Why'd you go to a different place? And
I think it falls in the line of kind of like Minority Report. Instead of using
it's predictive
people, we're going to just be using AI and technology and predictive behavior, and we're going to end up in this Minority Report state where, based on where you drove for the last 4 weeks and your spending habits and the conversations and emails you sent over the last 4 weeks, we think you're going to commit a crime in a couple days. So we're just going to hold on to you for a little bit and infringe on your rights and things like that for the sake of humanity. And I think we're being kind of indoctrined now to get used to that, to kind of be okay with that. But the feeling I got is he has the mindset of is when you have enormous amounts of freedom like we do, freedom comes at a cost. And there are going to be people that exploit freedom for evil ways and nefarious ways, but that's not an excuse to give up your freedom.
Yeah, and like even in this book, again, it's Little Brother, and people should pick it up. I picked up an audio book of it from the local library. It's one of his older works, but it's interesting. Like in that book, the politicians and they talk about it. It's like, well, what do you want? Do you want privacy or do you want terrorism? Because this is how we catch terrorists is by you giving up your privacy. And
It's the Patriot Act. It's the Patriot
exactly,
Act
and that's what he's framing out as. It's just a more intrusive Patriot Act that plays out, and it's to some degree it is a scary concept. I'm not a criminal, and I don't have anything that I need to hide from the government. But does that mean that I want them to have access to everything? And
my answer to that is that you're not a criminal now. You're not a and who knows the day that the government decides that something you do in your daily habit that is not a criminal activity becomes a criminal activity.
Yeah.
That's the thing is we live under man-made laws, and as we're not criminals now, it's only a matter of time before they say, well, you have this podcast where you talk about things that we don't want you to talk about, so now you're a criminal. And now you know what I mean? Like that's the road it can eventually go down, and to me that's scary. And I think people need to value their freedom and their privacy in these things more. That whole mentality of, well, if you're doing nothing wrong, you should have nothing to hide, kind of thing. That I've never been a subscriber to that. I understand it. Like, I get the thought process behind it. I just will never agree with it.
Yeah, it's a difficult space to be in. Like I said, especially when, everybody wants to frame it in the doomsday scenario of, if you don't do this, then bad things will happen, right? They're always going to frame it in worst case scenario, and this is how they slowly sap rights away and take things away in the guise of protection. But it's not always that easy.
That's just the government aspect of it. You have companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon that are taking all our information, all our lives, because now we are a plugged-in society. There's no way around it. You know what I mean? If we want to put this podcast out to the world, we have to use these mediums. If you want to work at your job, you have to be able to do certain things that everybody has to be plugged in. And they're taking the information from us that we plugged in without our consent, really, and monetize.
It's always with our consent, though. You've just never cared to read the terms of service, right? Nobody reads the conditions that we just all click the box and say we accept these terms and conditions. You don't have to accept them. It just means you can't use Google Maps. Like, if you don't want Google Maps to track every bit of your movement, just don't use Google Maps. But that's the problem, right? We're all forced into this age of convenience. And yeah, we could all go back to the dark age and not use the internet and not use the tools that are now available to us that make life significantly easier.
Is that really what decades upon decades of human interaction and innovation, is that really what we were trying to get to? We were trying to get to this point where we have these great tools that we could use, and now we all have to go back to the Stone Age because these tools are being corrupted and used kind of against us or not for us anymore, that we are just, you know what I mean? Like, that's the problem I have with it, is that we as a society have driven technology to this point as not, it's not just one person that springboards this. We made the phone, which ended up turning into faxes, which ended up turning into text, which ended up turning into email. But it all started from Edison.
Yeah, but everybody has to get paid, and this is the thing, right? If there was a mapping service, right? I'll just use Google Maps as the continued analogy here, right? Google Maps is a great service. Google Maps needs to get paid. Well, they're going to get paid on our metadata. They're going to track where we're going, what time we're going to places, so that way they can target ads and give that data to businesses. If there was a mapping service, there probably is. I've never looked into paying $15 a month for a service that doesn't share metadata, right? That doesn't track my information, but just gives me the tools.
That's what like a Garmin was, the first GPS kind of thing. You had to buy it for $150. You had to pay to update the maps. You had to and that's what I'm saying.
So are we going to go back to that model? Now everybody wants these free services, right? They all want this a part of their cell phone. Well, that cell phone is by a company that is going to just continue to try to make money and pay for all these updates and all these things that they're doing. They have to get paid. And it's a matter of how do they get paid?
There are two ways to look at it. So yeah, Google's a free service, Facebook's a free service, but Amazon, I buy products. They're making profit off of me buying products. So the secondary selling of my information of what I buy, when I buy it, how I buy it, who I buy it from, all that, that is something they're monetizing on top of the profit they're already making me off of me from being a consumer. The 23andMe thing where they're selling the DNA to science labs and all this, and they can make patents off of it and they can profit off that. I paid to give you my DNA.
Hold on. One, I didn't know that until he said that in the interview, and I've actually meant to go look into it. If that is true,
it's 100% true.
That is terrifying. What are you going to find in my genomes that you're going to go ahead and patent and have a special something that you're going to send out?
It's not your genomes though. It's you plus 100,000 people from your area that are drinking this type of water that are like there's all kinds of things they could do with metadata. Now add in your DNA with that metadata, and they're going to be able to make predictive kind of vaccines, maybe predictive antibiotics. Like, who knows what can come of this, but I paid them not even cheaply to, we got grandma a 23andMe, you know what I mean? I paid $200 to get that DNA scanned. So I paid for the service. They gave me back a product, which I valued, but then they're going to take that product and then they're going to profit again off the back end when Facebook at least says, okay, no, we're going to give it to you free, but we're going to monetize the back end. That's how we're going to make our profit. You almost kind of have to be okay with that. You either just say, well, then I just won't use Facebook.
The same with all Google services though, right? And Google being this massive industry that is just crushing anybody else who wants to compete in their domain. And not to mention, Google owns the vast market share of what we all carry in our pocket, the supercomputers in our pocket of the cell phones. Every Android-based service is all, we paid for the phone, we paid for the chips and things in the phone, but the software still comes whether we want it or not. And that's part of really what Cory's talking about with the fact that jailbreaking is illegal.
I recently listened to Sam Harris's podcast with Nick Bostrom.
The Facebook one.
Yeah, and the way he talked about Google was scary as shit.
Yeah, and Sam wouldn't even let him talk about Amazon, and he seemed even more concerned about Amazon. And they were like, we'll get to that at a different day.
Well, I mean, just look at the story of Amazon launching of over 3,000 satellites into Earth. And once again, they do it under the guise of
altruism, right? We're going to give everybody access.
The internet to the masses. You want that Somalian kid to have a smartphone, don't you? You want people in India that are poor to have the same access you do, which we do. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I think the world's better the more information people have at their fingertips. A smarter society, in my eyes, will never be bad.
No, but when all of your bandwidth is going through their services,
Lex Luthor shit to me. Yeah. This is Bezos. He's bald. If he was originally a ginger that lost all his hair for some radiation, I'd be really shitting my pants right now, because this to me is some straight Lex Luthor shit.
Yeah, I mean, but it's on the same vein of you've already got SpaceX saying that they were going to launch significantly more satellites, but all these low Earth, low orbit satellites that these companies are trying to put up, and you have to question. That's not a cheap thing to do, to send 3,000 satellites. So what's in it for them? Well, what's in it for them is the control of it's like being the postman who's now carrying everybody's mail, but you have the ability to read everybody's mail, and that's what Amazon would then be able to do is. When all services are being ran through their servers and through their satellites, they now have the ability to just do a quick little scan, just toss all of those packets through an algorithm that'll help them further monetize and sell products, and through their Amazon Web Services continue to dominate web domain spaces that people don't even really know that Amazon is doing.
I think Hassan Minhaj did it on his Netflix special.
Yeah, the Patriot Act.
Yeah, the cloud service that Amazon runs.
Yeah.
So Amazon runs the largest cloud service.
Yeah, the AWS, Amazon Web Services.
That was something I didn't know until I watched that. That literally, and it brings you towards an Orwell type scenario where you control the information, you control the people. And that's kind of where I think this is going, is they are putting out this technology. They are predicting our behaviors. They are trying to seep into literally every aspect of our life, from our fucking DNA down to all our communications that we have with each other. They are trying to seep into every aspect of our life. And you can't tell me that it's for positive societal reasons. It's for profit margins. It's for corporate goals. It's nothing good. I think shouldn't say nothing good, but not much good will come of this. I really don't believe, as Cory states in the interview, he's not an optimist or a pessimist. I got a lot of his writings as him being a pessimist, but he more said it was towards like writing warning signs. Like, I'm just trying to warn the people.
Yeah, and more people are capable of taking action when they see how bad it is, right? The conspiracy theorists are always more active than the people who just look forward to the future and say, everything's going to work out perfectly. The internet's going to be fully leveraged to its best altruistic intent and never go off the rails. So it's easier to talk about where it goes off the rails to actually inspire action.
Yeah, and I just have a problem, this is where I put on my tinfoil hat. You know what I mean? Like, I truly
No, I'm getting there.
There are conspiracies out in the world. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to, I'm not a goddamn flat earther, but this seems like pretty in your face, like bad shit. I don't think this is something you need to wear the tinfoil hat.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I haven't worn the tinfoil hat yet, but it's formed. It's formed and hanging on the wall. It's ready to go.
I made mine with the expensive non-stick shit too. Like, yeah, it's scary.
It is, and I mean, really, I guess what we could do is just hope that Bezos keeps getting married, and then each divorce is chips away 25% of his wealth. He just lost
Bezos.
he just lost $35 billion and made his ex the third wealthiest woman in the world.
Well, you got the other one.
Divorce, so.
You got the other one smoking weed on Rogan, making flamethrowers. This is real life, bro. This is fucking real life.
That's the one that I always thought that's the potential Lex Luthor, right? He's Elon Musk is either the next Batman, that he's gonna go super off the rails and use his technology just to smite all the villains, or he's gonna go off the rails on the other side and he's just gonna try to dominate the world through his industry. One or the other is gonna happen. I don't know if he's gonna just continue to chug along on the path that he's on, being satisfied. He's too smart, too active, and he doesn't stop.
Bottom line, these are subjects that I think that, especially our nerd community, because we're the people that care about kind of these things, that can grasp the content. I think
it takes a nerd.
Subjects we should care about.
It takes nerds to understand what he's talking about with digital rights, right? The DRM protections that are on just about all the files in the world, and the way that Google and Microsoft, Google, all these companies, they don't just own the technology that they sell to us and they package to us. They own the way we use it. And it does force us into patterns of behavior by their design. And while it hasn't been that big of a deal up to this point, as they get more and more sophisticated in the way they want to continue to protect their software, continue to protect their operating systems, and force us to only use their approved apps and everything else, it starts to shape our way we interact with the internet, and the internet becomes the way we interact with society, and it becomes how we actually exist. So you have to learn about these
companies. We're giving these companies a free pass as of yet. I mean, just with the way we classify them. So the big thing with Twitter, Facebook, and Google and stuff is they claim to just be a platform. So we're just letting people put stuff out into the world. We don't have to own up to any of the same laws that other companies do, because we're like the phone company. You can't sue the phone company for something said on a phone line. We're just here. We're just letting words pass through lines, and the people that are passing the words are responsible for their content. Yet they want to be the police of the content. They want to put in algorithms that limit what you see and what you don't see. They want to limit your, I have 700 friends on Facebook. I think only 50 people interact with me because that's the only 50 people they're showing my content to.
Yeah, because they've liked something you've said in the last couple of months, and now they'll continue to see you. But the other ones, they just assume don't care about anything you have to say, and they'll never see it.
Which is probably true. I mean, it's fine.
It is true. Yeah, you don't really have 700 friends. You've got 3, and it is difficult. I will just say what you're talking about.
We don't hold them
Apple
up
in that
to
category.
those responsibilities, though. We don't hold them up to owning up to libel laws. We don't have, with the Russian bot scandals and the elections and things, we're not holding them responsible for putting this content out in any way, shape, or form. So they're able to
you exist in both of these worlds, though, right? Because you're posting movie reviews that are going through Facebook and stuff, right? And if you have a misstep or something in your reviews, should Facebook be held liable because you said some nonsense in a movie review? No. So do they just no longer allow you to post movie reviews? Unless they're going to further now scan and select what you're able to say on their platform, they can't. It is a monster that's grown to a point that we can't control.
My movie review doesn't go out to my entire audience. So they're choking my audience from my content. So you can't do both. Pick one. So if you're going to choke me, then you can censor me. But if you're not going to censor me, if I'm just passing information, then you have to let my information through.
And they've already tracked the fact that your information, your movie reviews aren't quite clickbaity to a whole lot of people. So it's only going to show to people that have recently Googled a movie review or looked up a movie review, and they're going to use that information to send it to them, which is why, the Trump stuff and the election stuff has such a viral feel to it, because just about everybody has already clicked one article supporting or against Trump. So now everything that is said is going to be put in front of their face, which means you can't now control it.
They're not even choking this stuff for altruistic reasons. They're choking it because they want
just to keep
money.
Yeah, just to keep you on the site.
Money.
Yeah.
Hey, 100 people have seen your post. Why don't you boost it for $15 and we'll make sure 5,000 people see it? Well, no, man, you're just supposed to let it out there. And if 5,000 people see it, 5,000 people see it. If 500, it's 500. You're supposed to just be my gateway to the world. You're not supposed to extort me. It's essentially digital extortion.
I don't know. It's just gotten to a scale that is no longer controllable, because while we say that, and we say that, the problem is I'm not a big Facebook user, but if I was on there all the time, I also don't want the top of my information to be a bunch of stuff I have to scroll through to find 3 things I'm interested in, right? It's the same thing as online businesses. We don't want the metadata to get collected, but at the same point as an online business, you want to be able to buy ad space. And that ad space you want to market to your customers. You don't want to market to the world. You want to market to your prospective customers. Well, how does Google determine who your prospective customer is?
I also don't want to make a dildo joke and then have my newsfeed filled with dildo ads. Okay,
Yeah, that's for a different reason. That happened to you for a whole lot of other reasons.
But do you see my point? You can't, it's a jagged road that we're walking on, and we need to be careful where we step and which direction we take. Yes, some of these things are convenient and are helpful, but if we need to look at whether this is a net positive for society or a net positive for a company, because I could give a shit about the net positive of the company. If it needs to be the net positive for society. And I'm a firm believer that we need to, as a society, get away from I'm okay with all this shit as long as I'm getting it for free. No, we have to be willing to put our money where our mouth is. That's why I like Sam Harris. Yeah. That's why I'm a Patreon fan, that if you like content and you don't want X, Y, and Z to happen, then put $1 down.
Well, but
$5 down.
So the technology and what's being done is it can be a net positive for society and the companies, right? There is a way to do both. That's the whole point of capitalism, right? The positives for the company drive change and innovation. Creates jobs and creates a better society. But part of the problem is we just no longer have competition. And without competition, the super companies are just going to continue to do what they want. Apple gets credit in the sense that, they've recently started doing their ad campaign called Privacy Matters, where they talk about privacy. And in the Sam Harris podcast, they talk about it as well as, it's just something that Apple's trying to highlight, is the sense that, if you use an iPhone and you're using Google Maps, you screwed up. Just use Apple's maps, because they do not share any metadata. The second you close that app, they delete out where you've been, what you've done. They've done a good job, while Apple has its own missteps. But in the end of respecting the people's privacy who buys their technology and not continuing to try to monetize off of the use of their technology is admirable. Problem is we crush anybody else who's going to compete.
I'm going to put my tinfoil hat back on. And it was a few years ago when they had that terrorist attack at the publication where they wanted to
unlock the phone.
Unlock the phone. And I really don't think the government really wanted the information on that phone. I think that was
they wanted to set precedent that
they wanted it. They wanted to test. That was a test on American society.
Yeah. They wanted to set precedent that we can obligate people to unlock their phones. You get pulled over and they just say, "Hey, stick your fingerprint on here."
We want to see if you were texting while you were driving. We want to see if you were blah blah blah. This. We want to see who you were talking to. Like, nah, man. Like, my privacy is my privacy, and that was a big test. And I'm happy that Apple passed it. But that's where I put my tinfoil hat on. I really don't think the government gave two shits about that information. Hey, if we get it, it'll help. But right now we need to push the narrative of, the whole terrorism trumps privacy. And once they push that precedent, you're right. It's a slippery slope from that point on.
Yeah. I just hope in the digital space, and Cory talks about this a lot. Greater competition in the digital space would benefit us all. If there was a company that could rival Google, but respected privacy to a greater degree, gave us greater control over what metadata was collected, well, then maybe more people start using that, and then that competition changes the model
there's
of
a push
Google.
For this. Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin are trying to start their own maybe social network to rival Facebook and stuff for free speech reasons. This is now becoming a more popular issue, and that's kind of like why I'm glad
Facebook's going to kill
this show.
Not like literally kill him, but they're going to buy out whatever services. In the end, they're going to figure this out.
You can't buy something out that ain't for sale. So
you could buy out. There's going to be a way. There's going to be a way to be crushed or made irrelevant. And that's tinfoil hat. Let me take it off for a second. But it's. Cory talks about you can't be an optimist or a pessimist, because then you're just a victim of fate. Yeah, you're just a victim of fate. Just lay back and let the worst case or best case happen. So I try not to be too much of a pessimist in this realm. That there is, when good people have a concept like what Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson trying to fix the social network model. I hope it works. I'll join, and it doesn't mean I'm going to kill my Facebook, right? Because Facebook still is needed to some degree.
Man, bring back Tom.
Oh,
he was my first social network friend. He taught the massive amount of Americans how to write code, because you wanted that blingy little music player when everybody opened your page. Like those were the good days. Let's go back to learning how to code and seeing that smiley doofus with a chalkboard behind him. Like I'm just glad that we're at least now part of the people trying to put this information out there. Sorry to the nerds that are listening that really only want to know what I think about a movie and what you think about a book. We do have other interests. We do have other things that we feel fall into the nerd realm. And I hope that everybody stays around for these conversations. And, if we just force feed some of this information into your brain, I think you're the better for it. I honestly do. Even if you don't agree with us, I still think it's something that most people should be pondering, especially as we move more and more towards a digital age. and AI becomes smarter and more and is able to predict your habits. You know, I've read studies where scientists can put you in a room and give you tons of multiple choices, but they can guarantee that you're going to pick, you know, the red square, you know, out of this whatever thing based on them controlling the room temperature, them controlling the art that's in the room. Like,
Yeah.
we are manipulative. You know, like we can be manipulated very easily as humans, and we don't even recognize the ways that that's possible. And I think as we more and more immerse ourselves in a digital world, all those ways that they manipulate us become ones and zeros that we never see. And it could be a couple months, could be a couple years, could be a couple decades. Eventually down the road, we're all going to wake up and just wonder, wait a minute, what's going on now? Like, they're doing what? Like, and I just want to be proactive in society. I want people to know about these things. Like, I'm really glad that we got to talk to Cory, and he kind of sparked this kind of discussion for this episode.
Yeah, it got me down the rabbit hole looking at, again, watching his TED Talks, watching some other things. We'll try to link a few of these things in the show notes. So thenerdcantina.com/show3. We'll just try to continue these conversations. It's something, again, you can't always stop yourself from getting punched in the face, but at least get punched in your face with your eyes open, like see it coming. So you have a good chance of responding. And that's really all I try to do. I recognize that my impact may not be felt in these realms, but it doesn't mean that I want to necessarily just shut down and not know that it exists out there, that these are problems, social problems that exist.
Well, if we got one new person thinking about these things, then I guess we did our part, right?
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered this pretty thoroughly, and we can continue talking about this. Me and you probably will continue talking about this off the show here. But I hope the audience enjoyed this part of it. If you did, let us know. Send me an email at ken@thenerdcantina.com. If you've got something you want to say, where you think we're wrong, where you think we're right, or just want to have your voice heard, again, you can call that voicemail line that you'll find at the show notes. Again, thenerdcantina.com/show3, or on the bottom of any review. Like us on Facebook, you'll find it all over the place.
Call and let me know how bad of a chimp I am. Like, I don't care. Like, I want to hear it all.
And then, again, while you're there at the show notes, we would greatly appreciate if you would subscribe and join the community. Again, our ultimate goal here is to establish a community, people that we can continue to have these conversations. Steve and I have spent many years having these conversations together, and we really just don't enjoy each other's company that much. So if we could have more people that to share in, that's the better. And continue to engage. We appreciate the support up until this episode 3, and we don't intend on stopping this anytime soon.
Nope.
So the more people we can bring along with us, the better.
Oh, and another way that you can support, if you want to support with your pocketbook, we did just recently launch our Patreon page. We don't have any exclusivity for anybody yet. We're still trying to work out all the kinks with the Patreon. But if you just want to throw a $1 or a $5 donation, those are the only 2 tiers on our Patreon right now. Is you could send us $1 because you believe in what we're doing, or buy us a cup of coffee a month. But either way, if you support the Cantina and you really like what we're doing and you want to really help us push out into the world and be better at what we're doing, we did start that Patreon page just for that right now. And as we go forward, we will find ways to offer our Patreons some discounts, some exclusivity, things like that. We will work that out.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for sticking around this far. Thanks for engaging in the conversation, and we look forward to continuing. All right, goodbye, nerds.
See you later.